He's ranking member on the Budget Committee, very close to the leadership, member of the leadership the last cycle here. Congressman, let me start with what you understand that is, quote, on the table in the $4 trillion grand bargain here. What a part of Social Security is on the table, or is it sort of to the side?
Right. Before I get to that, could I just say that the disappointing jobs numbers this morning underscore what a lot of us have been saying, which is that even as we work to come up with a plan to reduce the deficit over the next 10 years, we do nothing in the short term to harm the economy, and deep, immediate cuts would do just that. So first, do no harm, principle number one. With respect to the grand bargain, we've said all along, the president said all along, you need balance. You need to make sure that you have revenue, closing corporate loopholes, asking folks at the very high end of the income scale to pay more. We've said with respect to Social Security, we support the idea of strengthening Social Security on its own track, on its own merits, just like Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan did many years ago. And there are ways to do that.
You would put it, you want to make sure it's put back into Social Security. So you're basically saying, fine, we may tinker with COLA, but what it is about it's going back into the savings.
Well, I'm not saying we're going to tinker with COLA, but I am saying that when you're dealing with Social Security, yes, it should extend the life of Social Security. Right now, Social Security is fully solvent until 2037. What we should not be doing is trying to balance the rest of the budget on the backs of Social Security beneficiaries. What we could do is work to strengthen Social Security on its own track, and there may be ways to dedicate more revenue to Social Security as part of any discussion, and further strengthen the solvency of Social Security.
All right, what is too much for Democrats? It looks like we were discussing a little bit of the simple math here. There's complicated math when we talk about COLAs and Social Security, and then there's simple math, 218.
That's right.
We know there's not 218 Republicans for a deal. John Boehner knows that. Everybody is, the Republicans are conceding that. The question is, what's his comfort level and how many Republicans is he willing to lose? And then, are there going to be enough Democrats to fill in that gap?
Right.
What do you say?
And the key question there, Chuck, will be whether there's a sense of fairness and balance. Again, whether or not folks at the very high end of the income scale are beginning to contribute, going back to the kind of rates that we saw during the Clinton administration, which, by the way, was a time when the economy was booming. Democrats are prepared to make some hard choices. I mean, at George Washington University, the president put on the table a plan that did over $4 trillion in savings over a 12-year period. Cuts on the domestic discretionary, but also recognizing that we have to deal with the defense side of the equation. We had a hearing in the Budget Committee yesterday, which was somewhat promising, because on a bipartisan basis, people recognize that there are some savings to be made on the Pentagon side of the equation. So tough decisions will be made. We have offered ways to strengthen Medicare, for example, by giving Medicare the same kind of bargaining rights that the Veterans Administration has when it comes to prescription drugs, things like that.
When it comes to this tax deal, it seems as if the idea of, quote, raising new revenue would come under the guise of lowering tax rates, but eliminating some deductions, and potentially some very popular ones, maybe lowering the percentage of deductions when it comes to charitable giving, lowering the amount you can deduct on a home. Is that going to be will you be comfortable with something like that, that while it will lower rates, and to appease some Republicans at the same time, it's going to get rid of some popular deductions?
Well, you have to look at any tax reform measure on its own merits, because it's easy.
And that's where we're headed, by the way, with tax reform, right? Is that rates are going to be changed and lowered, deductions eliminated, right?
Well, that's the overall concept that was put forth in the bipartisan commission report.
Right.
And and this has been reported. One of the proposals we put forward in the context of these talks was the idea that folks at the higher income level, so over $500,000, would begin to see a phase out of their deductions, and that does generate a good amount of income over a period of time. When you couple that with plugging corporate loopholes, oil and gas subsidy, getting rid of oil and gas subsidy, that kind of thing, you can generate a fair amount of income. So we would say that you want to begin that process with folks at the very high income. High income.
Are you more optimistic for the $4 trillion deal or the $2.5 trillion deal?
Well, I think we all would like to see, I should say, not all, but I would like to see, and the president and others would like to see, a $4 trillion deal. It would send a very important message that the United States is serious about getting its long-term
that takes Medicare off the table as a political weapon. probably.
Well, look, we have been very clear, Chuck, that we are not going to accept anything remotely like the Republican proposal that would gut Medicare, which would say to seniors, we're going to transfer all these additional costs to you, or you're going to have your benefits whacked. No chance anywhere we're talking about anything like that.
Congressman Chris Van Hollen, Maryland Democrat, ranker in the Budget Committee, involved in all of these things.
Good to be with you, Chuck.
It's a busy weekend. Thanks very much. All right, the budget isn't the only